All right, let's start off. Salakia. All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is the word Gentile or Gentiles. Now I'm watching the video Elder Pastor Art did, which is his latest video on the page to Harbor Lawyer. And pretty much, he was going into that word. And pretty much he mentioned how, we broke the word down to vocab many times, or what the word Gentile means. And, pretty much vocab is, he's just all the way full demon, pretty much. And no matter how much you explain stuff to him, he ain't gonna accept it because it goes against, the bullshit that he was taught. Nevertheless, when you look up the word Gentile, for the most part, or Gentiles in the New Testament, it goes to the Greek word ethnos. Now, the Greek word ethnos implies ethnicity. Then it also implies people of the same genus, And the word genus or Genesis goes back to the word gene or beginning, which is the seed line of Abraham. And this is the promised seed that the Lord promised Abraham, that all nations of the earth will be blessed because they will be scattered abroad, and, in the whole world. Now, when you go into the Old Testament and into the New Testament, it gives you genealogy, which is the so on and so forth. And pretty much, today we cannot, hold to the genealogy because those records pretty much have been lost, burnt up, gone. The Greeks burnt up the book of the law, and I'm sure they burnt up everything else. So right now we cannot, base our knowledge or acceptance of being an Israelite based off of genealogy. But that was at one point, what the truth was based upon. This is why when you go to the book of Ezra, in the book of Ezra, it gives you a list and a genealogy, and going through the genealogies, there was particular individuals that took on the name of Israel, but they couldn't find their pedigree in the genealogy. So they had to be put aside until a prophet rose up to pretty much break it down to them whether they were Israelites or not. You have something called the Urim and the Thummim, so on and so forth, right? And this is why the Apostle Paul mentioned. Now that back then was physical because those people more than likely were not Israelites. They just assimilated, and because you have Jake that can be compassionate at times and might have servants among those nations that they allow to take their name and to come in among them, this is what happens. Like the history, I forgot the man's name. I believe it started with an S, and pretty much he had an Egyptian servant whom he gave his daughter to, I believe it was, and he gave him inheritance among Israel, something like that. And that was not to be, because he was going off, pretty much. Because in the law it states, Moses, they came to him with a gripe about the daughters of Manasseh, that they had, the inheritance of their father, and their father didn't have any sons. So the consensus or the law that was written at the moment at that time was that those women could marry whoever they wanted to, but they had to be somebody of the tribe of Manasseh. If I'm not mistaken, on the tribe, I believe it was Manasseh. All right. So that, because if they would have married a man of another tribe, that inheritance would have went to him, and he would have passed it on to his tribe. And the inheritance of land was not supposed to pass from tribe to tribe. So when we come into the New Testament, as far as the genealogy is concerned, the Apostle Paul said, give not heed to endless genealogies, because they bring about forth questions instead of godly edifying. This is why he also said in the book of Romans, the 8th chapter, the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit that we are the sons of the living power. All right, but you have to be of that seed line, of being an Israelite. Today, identify with the so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native American Indians, and those Israelites around the world that may not look like your typical Israelite, but their father's line goes back to one of those, tribes, the 12 tribes. All right, so that's what the word ethnos means. It means an ethnicity, people that have a genus, same genus in common. But it would come to a point where it would not be able to be reckoned physically by a genealogy because eventually we would be scattered among all these different nations and lose our nationality. Okay, now when you go to the Roman service, right, the soldiers, the Roman soldiers, you had a lot of Israelites that were, Roman soldiers. Salakia, spare me 1 second. Had to get past the boo-boo station. That's what we were talking about the other day, this foul smell around here. But when you go to the Roman military, right, you had a lot of Israelites that were, in the service of Caesar. You have sons of Israel in service of Caesar. Now, some of them had their Hebrew names, such as Tiberius Julius Alexander, which was a top general in Caesar's army. Knew he was an Israelite, despised his Israelite, background, and accepted the Romans just like, the children of Israel, when Yahushua was crucified, said, we have no king but Caesar, And a lot of those Roman soldiers were actually Israelites that had Greek and Latin names. And because they had Greek and Latin names, the rabbis of the time, which were Jakes, actually did not acknowledge them and did not write them as being Israelites. See, so this was like a small, but did that not make them Israelites? No, just because they didn't accept them, they were still Israelites. And the thing about it is, that's just a small example of, the Israelites coming back, but not under that genealogy or genealogical timeline, so to speak, or father line or patriot, line, because today everything will be based off of faith. This is why it says the Spirit beareth witness with our spirit that we are the sons of the living power, because they would not be able to be reckoned by genealogy. It would be reckoned by faith. Okay, so when you go to that word Gentiles, ethnos, that goes into, the word ethnicity, or being of the same genus, which is of the same origin. But the only problem was that certain Israelites had lost their way. They were to the point where they no longer call themselves Israelites. They call themselves Greeks or Romans or whatever the case may be, of whatever peoples they was hanging around or living around in those times. So no matter how elaborate you break it down, scriptures say that the serpent, Esau, vocabulary being one of the top ones, will not accept it. They will not hear. They will not be charmed, So, hey, be it as it may, those of you Israelites out there that can understand it, receive it, beautiful. If not, be damned with the serpent. All right? So this has just been a short, little impromptu video on the word Gentiles. Shalom.